Well, you've probably heard North Korea is saying that a U.S. practice mission that flew up the Korean peninsula is an escalation towards nuclear war. The B-1 bombers flew from their base in Guam to run military drills with Japan and South Korea. It's a show of force in the wake of Kim Jong-un's defiance, testing an intercontinental ballistic missile, as you know, on the 4th of July. Michael Auslin is an expert in Asian studies at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. Thank you for joining us, Michael. I'll get it out eventually. Did the storyline change this week on Tuesday, and how so?
I think it did. You know, we have waited for years to see how far North Korea would go with this program of theirs, and they now have tested an intercontinental ballistic missile, which means now for the first time the U.S. homeland can be put at risk because of the commitment we've made to South Korea. It's easy to make a commitment when there's not a lot of cost to you. Now the cost has raised dramatically, and I don't think that our thinking about the strategic risks have kept up with it.
If we look at history a little bit, there's a number of ways that different administrations have handled North Korea. They've ignored North Korea. They've labeled it a state sponsor of terror, which has been rescinded. And then they've had diplomatic engagement, which I think began in 2003, and then I think 6 or 7 years later ended up failing. So that didn't work. What's next then? Because those are three extremes, if I'm not mistaken, three very different options.
Well, we actually have been doing the diplomatic card for longer, 25 years, back to 1994 and the agreed framework under the Clinton administration. This is what a quarter century of failure looks like. And you're right, we've swung between all these different extremes. Now, I think it's true, we have not put as much pressure on the regime or on China as we could have.
So you're talking sanctions now?
Much harder sanctions, financial sanctions against the family, against Chinese banks, against Chinese businesses. The Trump administration has just started that. But everyone knows those sanctions are coming. It's not like they're sitting there waiting for us to do it. People are figuring ways around it. China and Russia are not supportive.
I wouldn't say China is stupid. You know,
no.
They're not saying, well, here's the banks. Well, we're not going to protect them. We're not going to move funds.
That's right, and they've thought all this out. So we have no good options. What we have is a permanent reality now. This is what North Korea is going to be like. They're never going to give up these nuclear weapons. So the statement by Secretary Tillerson last week that we still look for denuclearization, I think, is something that's behind the curve. What we have to think about in a new way is deterrence and containment.
So cybersecurity, maybe?
Well, that's part of it, and there are things that we do, and there's messages we can send to the North Koreans to keep them essentially in their box. They have to know that should they step out of it, there will be a cost to pay, but we have to recognize they're not going to change what they're doing. We can't negotiate our way out of it, and we can't pressure them into giving these things up. This is the new stalemate.
Right.
This is not the Soviet Union. This is not an existential threat. But in some ways, it's much more dangerous because we know that these guys would use it if they felt they were about to lose power. So the threat to us, the threat to our allies is much higher. It's very good, by the way, that we went flying with the Koreans and Japanese. Those are the types of messages we have to send.
Messages, but there's not going to be anything, and nor should they be, which you probably would agree, military-wise. I mean, there's nothing that the U.S. can really do. So are we going to see more military exercises? Are we going to see those sanctions go into place over the next couple weeks?
I think yes, on both. I also would not be surprised if the Trump administration tries to get back to the negotiating table. Right. It's what we do because we believe we can always get a deal, and this should show us we can't. We will see more military exercises. We will see the credibility of the U.S. showing that, look, if you step over that line, there will be punishment. But we're not going to use those to actually change what happens. This is the stalemate, and that stalemate's going to be there for a long time to come.
All right, well, like you said, it's not going anywhere soon, so I'm sure we're going to have you back. Michael, thank you so much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.